Okay, so this is the structure of Spring Boot, the backend, and you know what is this? Is the front end, and this is the database. So we will understand how our Spring Boot application is going to interact with the database. I mean, so the communication has to happen right from the Spring Boot application to the database. So this is the area where the communication is supposed to happen, right? This is the area I'm talking about. So this area, or else I can say that this is a layer where the Spring Boot interacts with the database. Spring Boot is going to interact with the database. So all this all this, like you see the front end layer, this is one of an independent layer, and if you see the back end layer, this is again an independent layer, and if you see the database layer, and again it is an independent layer. So to communicate between the front end and the back end, what language we have used so far? Anyone? What is this layer? What language that we have used?
JSON.
JSON. I mean REST APIs, representational state transfer. It is called as what? RESTful web services. Okay, this is the actual word that you have to use. RESTful web services. Web services. Right? So the RESTful web services is going to do the conversion. Right? The conversion could be like the JSON to Java object and the vice versa, or sometimes XML to Java object and the vice versa. Right? Likewise, you know, I'm talking about the layer between the backend. Okay, I'm talking about layer between the backend and the database. Okay, the layer that I'm talking about is called as what? We are supposed to use a language which is called, we are supposed to use a tool. Instead of language, I can say that we have to supposed to use a tool which is called as Hibernate. Hibernate is a tool. This tool will help the Java backend and the database to communicate. Okay. The question is, what is the Hibernate? What is a Hibernate? This is the you know, this is one of the important topics, Hibernate. Okay. What does the Hibernate do? Right? Hibernate is a separate language, guys. Let me tell you, Hibernate is a separate language which is going to help the Java backend and the database to communicate. So they can also, you can also say that it is a tool which usually do what? It is a ORM tool. It is a ORM tool. What is this ORM? What is this ORM? See, in Java we create objects, right? Let us say that you have the student class. Let us say that you have the student class student. Okay, and let us say that the student class has only two properties for now. String name, the first property, and the string location as the second property. Okay, this is what? This is the Java class. And if you create an object like this, student s equal to new student, okay, and you have to pass the two parameters, let us say Balaji and 25. Okay, and this is the Java object. This is how the Java object is going to look like. We know these things already. Okay, and this is name as Balaji, right? And you have what? You have the, did I use location? Okay, we change it to instead of location, let me change it to age. So age is, let us assume that age is of string type. 25. This is the Java object. On the other side, so the Spring Boot, when you talk about the Spring Boot application, so you create a lot of objects. So you usually call it as Java beans. Okay. It is very much straightforward. Right? So, but in the database, you see the databases, the SQL databases are represented in the form of table, right? Hello? Relational. What is a relational database? When I say relational database, Oracle is a relational database. MySQL is a relational database. Relational means any database that is going to store data in the form of rows and columns. In the form of table. Any database that is going to store the data in the form of table. You have a table, and each and every table is going to have the what? It's going to have the column, right? Column names. So this is the name column, and this is the age column. Right? So this is the columns, and also each and every table is going to have what? Row. I mean, let us say that if the name is Balaji and age is 25, 25, right? So I'm talking about what? I'm talking about the relational database. Data. What is this? This is what? This is Java object. Java object. Okay. If there is any tool that is going to map, it is going to map what? Map the Java object and the relational database. Let me keep it simple. If there is any tool that is going to map the data of the Java object and the relational database, right? For example, Hibernate tool. Guys, I'm talking about Hibernate tool. Hibernate tool is going to do what? Okay. You create any number of Java objects. You create any number of Java objects. If this Java objects needs to get represented in the databases, okay, conversion has to happen, right? So this is the data that we're talking about, right? So Balaji is one of the data, 25 is another data, right? For this data, you have the variable name, which is what? Which is name and the age, right? And this is what? This is of what type? This object is of what? The student type. The object class, okay, the name of the object student will be represented as the table name in the database. This conversion will happen. Okay, name of the Java object will be converted to the table name first. Okay, and the variables of the Java object will be converted to what? Will be converted to the column names. Right? And the data, this data that is being assigned to the respective variables will be converted to what? Will be converted to equivalent rows. Who is doing that conversion here? Hibernate is doing that. What is an Hibernate? Hibernate is what? Hibernate is an ORM tool. What is ORM now? Object relational map. Means object is getting the data inside the object is getting mapped to the data inside the table. That's what is called as what? Object relational mapping. Okay. Hibernate is one of the object relational mapping. So now you understand the job of the Hibernate, yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Every Java object, guys, every Java object is going to have a name, right? Not the reference I'm talking about. I'm talking about the class name. The class name is going to be represented as the table name, and the variable names will be represented as the column names, and the data will be represented as what? Will be represented as the row. Who is doing this conversion? This conversion is being done by a particular tool. The name of the tool is what? Hibernate is one of the ORM tool. What is ORM? Object relational mapping. So ORM is fitting here. So this place is meant for what? ORM. Any questions here?
No, sir.
This is one thing. I am saying this is an object relational mapping tool. What it does, it automatically converts the Java object to the database tables. Very straightforward, right? First, very simple. Okay, convert Java objects to what? To database tables, right? Secondly, it will also do one more thing. What is the one more thing is, you as a developer, you do not have to worry about what? You do not have to worry about remembering the SQL queries or writing the SQL queries. Don't worry about writing the SQL queries. Okay, so these SQL queries are abstracted. These SQL queries are abstracted by the Hibernate in such a way that instead of using the direct SQL queries, you will use the methods that is getting represented in the Java. There are some methods. Okay, we will understand that. So these are the two things that you can do with what? Do with a particular ORM tool. First thing, and the second thing is SQL query is also automated. Right? Now we have an answer, right? And this Hibernate is a very big topic. I have just suppressed and I'm keeping the content very simple. If you want to learn this Hibernate, it will be going to take 30 classes. But I'm recommending not to learn this. Okay, if you, what we call it as, if you get a time, sometimes if you get a situation like this, I mean, if you get a situation in the project where you want to visit Hibernate, so you can visit then and there. You can Google it or you can do ChatGPT, whatever it is. But I don't recommend to learn this as a separate one. right? Now one more thing, now we have to understood something about what, so to do all these things, right? So you have the objects are getting created, right? Now you need to create an object in a controlled manner. So when I say controlled manner, what does it mean is you can use a normal Pojo class, guys. So this is a normal Pojo class, student class. Okay, it's a normal student class. But in the Spring Boot framework, you want to tell the Spring Boot that this Pojo class, okay, this Pojo class is going to represent a table in the database. How we are going to tell that? Okay, not all classes are eligible enough to be converted to what? Converted to the database table. Only the what? Only the
Entity, sir.
perfect. We will annotate this class with @entity. What does it mean? So an entity class, this is called as what? Entity class. Entity class in a Java class, that it is going to represent a table in the database. Right? Internally, each the class name will be converted to the table name. So again, it is done by the what? ORM tool. Okay, and the column names will, I mean, the variable names will be converted to what? The column names. Okay, and each and every object that you create, okay, if you create one object with the data, if you create 10 objects with the data, each and every object will be representing a row. Okay, there is one rule that you must follow. There is what? There is one rule that you must follow. Okay, you should define the what? You should define the primary key. Do you remember in Oracle classes when I was taking? Okay, it is highly recommended to have a primary key for a particular column. Do you remember this or not? Primary key. Function of primary key.
Yes,
Unique
sir.
values.
Yes, sir.
Correct. It is a kind of unique identity, no? Right? So when you define any class by using this annotation entity, you must also define any variable as a primary key. Typically, we take the numerical value as a primary key ID. I mean, the long value I'm taking any numbers. Let us say that you are creating a lot of objects, so each and every object has to be unique in some way, right? Usually for a student registration number is going to be unique. For an employee ID is going to be, for any data that you're going to represent, the collection of data, any collection of object, okay, or any object that has collection of many variables, if it has to stand unique, you should definitely represent what? A unique ID, right? Okay, and for entity class also you should define that variable, and you must annotate that variable with @id. Means any variable that is represented with @id will become the primary key in the database column. Okay, so now 3 columns will be there, and this name of the column is going to be id, and this is going to represent the primary key. This is mandatory. This is very much mandatory. Making sense?
It could be anything, sir.
Usually we take numbers. I mean, what? How do you represent a unique entity? Definitely it has to be a number, right? A numerical value, right? Anywhere, wherever you go. You can also represent a string.
All numbers.
Everything. You can also represent a string, but it will not make any sense, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So that's why
Yes,
you
sir.
always go for integer value. So I'm taking long. I'm just assuming that our the IDs are going to be crossing the memory of the integer data type. So usually you take long. So this is the entity class. So till yesterday we were understanding about the we have taken the in-memory database. We have used a map. Today, instead of again we are going to use the in-memory database, but this database is going to act like a real database. What is a database? H2 database. Okay. So what is this H2 database? You have heard about Oracle database. You have heard about MySQL. Okay, you have heard about what? PostGRE. Okay, what else is there? You have heard about what? SQL Server. Right? And you have heard about something like Cassandra. This is the SQL database. I am MongoDB.
PLSQL.
Yeah, this database, all database that I'm talking about here, okay, this one, they usually persist the data. Means data persistency will happen in the hard disk. So you are going to store the data in the hard disk, the disk space. The disk space. It will occupy the disk space. Okay, whereas the S2 database that I'm going to introduce now, it is going to store the data in the RAM area. RAM. When I say RAM, everything in the RAM, okay, they are just the temporary things, right? They're very much temporary, right? RAM, the storage that happens in the RAM, they're temporary. So I can say that S2 database is a temporary database. And again, when I say RAM again, we can also say that it is going to be fast and what we call it as reliable. Not reliable, I can say it is going to be what? It is going to be very super speed. The speed is very much fast compared to the legacy databases. I mean the database that is going to use the hard disk. Okay. Third one is, since I mentioned that it is a temporary, okay, it is just used for the testing purpose, guys. Apart from that, really you don't use this in the production. You are developing a code in the Spring Boot. If that Spring Boot code actually depends on a database, right? So in the production, you can pick any one of the databases. It's up to the requirement. It's up to the requirement. It's up to the you will consider so many factors to choose which database would be relevant to your project. Okay? And it is going to be time consuming to choose the right databases. So when this is being done behind the scenes, okay, actually the developers, what they do, they start developing the Java project and they use this S2 database for temporary purpose. But the result is going to be same. The result is going to be same. This is easily replaceable. Making sense? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
We will build the project so that you will get all your questions will be answered. Okay, we'll start with a simple project. So file, new, what we say, Spring Starter project. Now you understand about the dependencies. Let me say CRUD operations. CRUD H2. CRUD H2. Next. Okay. Now you know what is Spring Boot dependency, right? You should also add the S2 database. So if you are adding the Oracle database in the future, you will add the Oracle dependency. If you're adding MySQL in the future, you will be adding the MySQL dependency. Since we are going to use this temporary database, I'm adding the S2 database, right? And also you can add this. You can add what? Spring Data JPA. I will tell you what is the Spring Data JPA. Let me add that first. Spring Data JPA. Okay, and finish. Okay, let us understand about the Spring Data JPA. I have added some dependency. What is the dependency? Spring Data JPA. What is the Spring Data JPA? Okay, usually there is a repository called JPA repository base. It is a standard interface. Okay, it is provided by what? This JPA repository is provided by Spring Data JPA. So this repository is part of what? It is written in the Java language. Okay, it is a kind of principles and it is a kind of protocols. It has some set of rules and regulations. JPA repository. I mean, okay, it is provided by the Spring Data JPA. I mean, Spring people has provided this JPA repository. Okay, very simple. This JPA is going to give you what? The ready-made code. Ready-made code. I mean, ready-made SQL queries. You do not have to remember even a single SQL query. All this query will be provided by this JPA repository. So most of the time we come across these operations. What is that operation? CRUD. What is C stands for? Create a resource. Okay, in order to create a resource by using the SQL query, what is the query SQL query to to create a, I mean to store values? Anyone? Use insert query, right? If you remember, insert into table and you pass the values. But the JP repository would tell you to do only one action, which is what? Just use the save method. This save method will supply the insert query that is actually required to store the object, to store the values in the database. You do not have to remember the query, but you just remember the save method. Save method internally is abstracted to write the SQL query on behalf of you. Hibernate is going to write the SQL query on behalf of you based upon the JPA, JPA repository, JPA Spring Data JPA rules. Okay, it is going to write those queries. Likewise, read. Okay, for reading, you usually do what? Select star from table. Yes or no? Select star from student. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Select star from so and so table name, which means read operation. And inside this repository is going to do what? To read the data, to read a resource or to read a resource from the table, we can use the find method or find by ID method. This find by find method is equal to select star from the table name. Find by ID means select star from the table where ID is equal to so and so. Okay. Find all means select star from table name to get all the resources. Not find is not that. Find all, find by ID. Okay. Update query you have in the database to update a resource. Okay, again use the save method, and inside the save method you go for the you take the entity class where you will have the setters and getters to do the updates. Delete. To delete a resource, you use the delete command in the SQL. Okay, whereas it's going to give you what? It is going to give you a command which is going to delete a resource. Okay. So these methods that I am talking about is equivalent to the SQL query. You do not, it says you don't remember about the SQL query, just remember about these methods. The common methods, I mean the common SQL queries that you would come across, that is converted to a Java method so that the Java developers can use these methods. Internally, this Hibernate tool, this Hibernate will take care of writing the SQL queries on behalf of. Understood so far?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
We will see these things action. You will get the complete picture. Trust me, you will get the complete picture. CRUD operation. Okay, the project is ready. Okay, so blindly after open this main method, okay, right click on the base package, new, create packages. What package we need? One is for model. Okay, second one is what? Controller. Third one is what? Service. Fourth one is what? Repository. Repository. Right now, what I am doing now, focus here. So there is a folder called src main resources. I am expanding this. Okay, you would find something like application.properties. So this is a particular file where you can define some where you can give some instructions, where you can give some instructions to the Spring Boot. Okay, sir, what kind of instruction that you can give? Any instruction. If you want to change the port number, you can say server.port. What is the default port? What is the default port number? Anyone?
808.
If you don't like 8080,
808.
if you want 8081, okay, now the server will start on 8081. Able to get? What I'm trying to say is any communication that you want to do with the Spring Boot app or a Spring Boot framework, you use this properties path. Okay, I do not want to do with this. What I want to give the Spring Boot is I want to give the configuration data of H2 database. I want to give the configuration information of H2 database. For each and every database, there is a configuration information. So now for Oracle database, can we start Oracle database directly? Want to connect to Oracle database? What are the requirement? What are the required things? Tell me one by one. If we want to connect to the Oracle database, what are the required things? Hello. Username is required, no, guys. Password is required, no. Hello.
Yes.
Do you think even if the Spring Boot wants to connect to any database, you need to supply that information to the Spring Boot or not? Yes or no?
Yes.
You have to supply, no?
Yes,
Where
sir.
where you will supply, because database is like a third party, no? It is not relevant to the Spring Boot. It is completely different. It's a different layer. It's a different layer. That layer is protected. It is secure. It is protected with username. It is protected with password. It is also protected with an URL. You are using this database in the server side. So many things you need to configure. That configuration, that information can be given in the application.properties files. Are you getting this or not? Okay, see,
Yes,
this,
sir.
this is the information. Okay, you can find this in the Google. You just type the configuration for S2 database. It is going to be common for everything. Very simple. Spring.datasource.url. Okay, you are giving the S2 URL, JDBC S2 memory test DB. Okay, driver class name you have to give. Okay, username by default is SA, password by default it is blank. Okay, and you will give the flat form. Okay, and you see something like DDL equal to auto, data definition language equal to auto update, which means you have an option to add the column in the runtime. Update in mode, the data definition language is set to be update, which means, for example, if your student class has 3 variables, and how many columns will be created? Tell me. If a student class has 3 variables, how many columns will be
3
created?
columns.
Okay, in the runtime, if you add the fourth column, it should get created now. The table, the fourth
Yes,
Yes,
column.
sir.
So, in order to if that has to happen, you need to do update here. You need to give update here. If you give none, nothing will happen. So for now, we will go for update because we are still in the level of understanding how the connection would happen between the Spring Boot and the databases. So for now, we will keep it update. Okay, this is the basic configuration I have done. So what else we require? Object relational mapping, right? Okay, we need to create object, no? Right? So
Yes, sir.
I'm taking a student class. Student class. Now focus here. So this is an ordinary class, right? Ordinary class. Okay, if I add, give me 3 properties of a student quickly. Student ID, the first property.
Name, ID.
ID.
ID will be first. Second one is name. Okay, third one.
Age.
Let me take the age. Okay, let me take age as 10. Okay. We will go with the 3 properties. Okay, do the same thing. You need to set the data. You need to have what constructors. Source generate constructors using queries. Why constructors are required? Because you would be receiving data from the front end. I mean, from the browser. Yes or no? To populate that. Okay, the JSON data needs to get populated in the as a Java object. That conversion has to happen, right? This will do that conversion. Okay, and let's keep a default constructor to be the safer side. And you need to have what getters and setters. Okay, done. And I need to mark what I need to make this class to be treated as a special, because this class needs to be recognized by the framework to do the object relational mapping. Okay, the objects that is being created here should be mapped to the table. So I'm taking it as what entity. Okay, if I run this,
No need for component, right, sir?
no, not required, because component, see, oh, good question. Okay, good question. Why component is not required? This will not be stored as a bean. This will not be stored as the Java bean. This will not be stored as the Java bean in the container. Why it will not be stored as a Java bean? You should not mark it as a component. If you mark it as a component, you are keeping a restriction, because every time these values will be new, right? For the first object, a unique data. For the second object, a unique data. For the third object, a unique data. You are playing with the state of the class. You're playing with the state of the class, right? But when you mark it as a component, it becomes a singleton. Singleton means again, okay, that is the future topic. Singleton is not only one object has to get created. We'll be using that one object forever. But you cannot mark the entity class as the component. If you mark it as a component, okay, it will not make any sense. Okay, it defeats the purpose of the entity class. Entity means this has to be mapped to the database table. Should be entity only. Making sense? For each and every class, there is a rule, Sudhir. For entities, I mean for model classes, if you want to treat this as, you want to store the values to the database, it should be entity. For the controller, it should be REST controller. That is the rule. For business logic, at the rate service, and for the repository, at the rate repository. Getting this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, if I run this code, we will be in trouble. Why we will be in trouble? Because at the rate ID is mandatory, right? Okay. Now I have said that I am specifically saying the ID property, the ID variable is representing the primary key. Okay. And also I want to give something. I want to give a job to the framework. I want to give a job to the framework to increment it automatically. For example, if I add first student 1, right, the ID should be 1. If I add student 2, the ID should get incremented automatically the moment I start adding the objects. I want the framework to increment this. I do not want the developer to give this value. I want the framework to increment this. Are you able to understand?
Yes,
If
sir.
they want the framework to do the incrementation job, because ID has to be unique, framework will take care that, okay, the ID has to be unique. It will keep incrementing by 1 every time you add the student object. In order to achieve that, you need to add something like the generated value. Okay, under ID, okay, at the rate generated value, you will give the strategy generation type dot identity, which means every time you add the student object, the framework will itself take care to increment what? To increment the ID of the student. Making sense?
Yes, sir.
Right, sir, I do not want to do this, means you can remove this. But you will see the advantage now. If I add, you're going to see the advantage. What advantage you're going to get, you're going to see that now. Okay, let me run this application and see. We're not going to get anything now. We'll see how the server is going to start. Run as Spring Boot. See now from here, see, focus here. Database JDBC URL. It says something like Ikari data source, Ikari data pool. It's a connection pooling. You do not have to worry about this. So behind the scenes, it is establishing a connection with the database. So database driver is also open, version is also open. Okay, and the Tomcat service was started. This is something different. It has also opened so many things that is relevant to the H2 memory database. So you're seeing this new, right? You're seeing this for the first time, right?
Yes, sir.
Because Spring Boot now knows that the developers wants to communicate with the database, as he has added the dependency, H2 dependency and Spring Data JPI. Okay, behind the scenes, the connection is established. Okay, this area, this layer is activated. What is this layer? Hibernate layer is activated. Okay, how do you activate this layer? What is the dependency to activate this layer? Tell me. Spring Web dependency. Remember or not?
Yes, sir.
Spring Web dependency is to activate this. Spring Data JP is to activate this. So many things are there. So if you want to do this thing without using any framework, it's going to consume a lot of time. Okay, you cannot complete your work in even in 3 or 4 days. Lot of configuration is required. So previously, during the Java legacy web applications, okay, they use this EJBs, Enterprise Java Beans, right? And they use RMS, remote method invocations. Okay, and they started using serverless. Okay? So there are a lot of drawbacks, on this framework. So they've introduced Spring, and Spring has become Spring Boot. Okay? Now the Spring Boot, the subject that we are discussing now, okay, which is going to address the drawbacks of EJBs, RMIs, serverless, Spring as Spring. These drawbacks, all the drawbacks are addressed by the Spring Boot, which means application development has become more easy. So we are understanding this. Without even understanding all these things, we are trying to understand this. We should appreciate ourselves because Spring Boot has made the subject that much easier, and it is most powerful framework in the software industry. If you take any framework, no other framework, no framework in the software industry will beat Spring Boot. It's a powerful framework. If you want, you can do research also. Try to do research on Spring Boot. Why it is why it
All
does
the
it work?
bank
Yeah,
bank applications.
yeah, bank as well, enterprise. No, no other framework can beat Spring Boot, guys. Very, very powerful. Because of Spring Boot, Java survived till now. And it will survive also. Right? Let us come back to the topic. What I was saying, now model class is ready. Now focus here. Now let me see who is going to tell this answer. Okay. So from browser to backend services, okay, how the object is going to be, okay, JSON, right? It's going to represent JSON. But if you look at your model class, the entity class, this ID is going to be auto generated, right? Spring Boot is going to generate this. So you do not have to supply this ID. What do you have to supply? You supply name and the age, ID will be auto generated, which means the data object should be what? The JSON object should be like, okay, you have the ID, not ID, what is it? You have the name. The name could be like Balaji, comma, you supply the age, 25. Okay, what is missing here? ID variable is missing. Why it is missing? You do not have to supply, you do not have to worry about it because the Spring Boot is going to take care of generating the ID. This is JSON object, right? Hello? This is going to
Yes.
be served to the Spring Boot. This has to be served to the Spring Boot. Okay, it will reach the REST controller, and again REST controller will communicate with whom? It is going to, these values will be populated because you have the entity class. Okay, through the entity class, okay, this is going to get converted to what? JSON gets converted to the Java object, right? So name is again Balaji, age is 25. Okay, REST controller will convert the what we call it as the JSON to the Java object through Jackson API. It will receive this. This will be traversing to service layer and repository layer, and it has to reach the database. What this tool is going to do? This is going to convert the Java object. Okay, it will just it will remove the Java object. It will just take these values. Okay, Balaji and 25, and it will be placed in the relationship database. Why it is called as what? Object relational mapping. Okay, it will give the table name, and it is going to generate the unique ID. Unique ID can be what? 1. For the first time it is going to be 1. Okay, Balaji 25. It is going to be the row. It is going to it is identify the column names. Column name is going to be what? ID, okay, followed by name, followed by age, and everything will be under the table name. Okay, what is the table name? Student. Are you able to see the beauty of the Hibernate? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is for the visualization. We will see these things next. Now we'll go back to the Spring Boot. Model class is ready. Let me stop the server. We will start from the repository. So because this repository is actually communicating with what? Communicating with the database. Okay, I forgot to tell you something. Let me start this once again. Okay. The question is, sir, where I can see the table? Where I can see the table? If it is an Oracle, I can open the Oracle DB. If it is MySQL, I can open the MySQL DB. Where I can see this S2 database table. Okay, for that you can just simply use this URL http localhost 8080 h2. Open the console of h2. Okay, just copy this and paste it in the browser. Now this is a username, and everything is there. Okay, just click on connect. This is a database, I mean the h2 database. Okay, just see, the student table is created by the framework. Did you create it? You have id, you have age, you have name. Did you create this? Let me say select start from student, the select query. If I run the select query, you see what, there is already a table by the name of student. This student is same as the entity name, right? Student. Hello.
Yes, sir.
id, name, age, these the variable names are same as the column name, right? id, age, name. Why data is
Yes, sir.
missing? We have to create object, that's why data is missing. Right? Why this is h2? If I just restart the server, all the data will be wiped out. Making sense?
Yes, sir. RAM based.
Yeah, RAM based. No, all the data will wipe out. Okay. So now you have seen the table. Okay. Let us start to communicate with the table. Connection has been established. Framework itself have established a connection. You did not write any single query. Table is created automatically. How it is created? After this JPA repository inside this JPA repository, this Hibernate is taking care of doing the work on behalf of the Java developers. Now it says, you don't worry developers, let me create the table for you. Just define the entity class. I will be under your service. Right? Now repository. Repository is a layer where this is going to communicate with the database. If you open and see this, repository is actually communicating with the database. So there is a layer called Hibernate layer which is acting between repository and the database. Right? So we have to define the repository. How do you define the repository? A JPA repository. Okay, there is an interface. Okay, file new. You have to choose interface. Okay, interface student repo. Any name you can give. Student repository. Okay. You need to implement this your repository to the JPA repository. I'm sorry. Interface extends that. JPA repository. It will accept two arguments. First argument is what? The type of the class. What is the type of the class? I mean student class, right? Name of the class. Student class. Second ID is what? The data type of the primary key. What is the data type of our primary key? Long, right?
Long.
Okay, import the student. Done. Very simple. You create this. What way you create this? You want to get the facilities that is being provided by the JPA repository. If you open the JPA repository, it is giving you some methods, some meaningful methods. Okay. You see find all. Okay, find all method. Okay, you can utilize this method. You can also utilize delete methods. Okay, save and flush method. Okay, has some, again it is extended to list repository. And if you see, save all method is there, find all method is there, find all by id method is there. Okay, you don't use write SQL queries. If you just use this, internally SQL query will be created by the Hibernate tool, and it gets it is going to do the operations on the databases. It is asking you to use this method names. Okay, queries will be taken care of by the Hibernate. These are the common method names. Usually what we do, guys, we just save, or we try to find, or we try to update, right? Apart from that, what else we do, right? If you see again third repository, it has save method. You will save. If you want to save data, you have to save, or if you want to save all objects, you can save. Find by ID. So many methods it has been given. It is giving you so many methods. Instead of writing queries, just use this method. Okay, let me remove this. These are the inbuilt classes. Okay, now this is created. Okay, in the service class, let me create the service class file new. Okay, now the interesting part, class I am creating student service. Okay, any service class I need to annotate with @ service. This is a recommendation, not the compulsion. You can use @ component also, but you will lose some benefits. Okay. So I want to use the repository methods in the repository. Okay, I will be auto varying the student repository. I will be auto varying the student repository, the student service. Okay, what I will do? Private student repository, student repository. Student repository, student repository. Let me auto vary this. Auto vary. Okay, I am defining a method case. What my method is going to do is public. Okay, it is going to return a string. Okay, add student. Name of the method is add student. If I ever have to add a student, I need to accept the data somewhere, right? I will be accepting the data the parameter. What data I will be accepting? I will accept the student data, student object. I will be adding that. I want to add the student object that I am consuming here. I want to add the student object to the database. What I will doing? I will use this repository, student repository, which is going to supply me the method, save method. Let me take save method. When I do save, it is just internally performing what? The insert query. This SQL query simplified just by using the save method. It just says use the save method. I will take care of writing a query for you and I will insert the data into the database. Able to follow?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then after this, you will return the meaningful message. What is a meaningful message? The student data has been saved. Okay. If you want to represent student also, again, this is going to return the same object. If you are passing student object, it is going to return the student object. Save method is going to return the same object. S1. Okay. You can fetch the student name S1 dot get name. Okay, the name okay, I can say that the student data of it's making more sense now. The student data of the name that you're going to supply has been saved, right? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Right now I want to activate what? I want to activate the okay, let me say this. Okay. I want to activate the controller. I will be receiving the data in the controller here, right? Let me create a class student controller. Let me annotate this with update rest controller. Okay. Now what I want to auto here? Hello? Which class I want auto here?
Service.
Service, no? Student service. Service. Student service. Okay, let me define an endpoint. So I want to save the data. Post method would be ideal, right? Post mapping. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Post mapping. Add data. Right? So public string add student. I think add student will be more relevant, right? So let me say add student is the endpoint. Okay. So if I want to receive the endpoint from the front end layer, what annotation I have to use here? If I want
Request
to
body, sir. Request body.
request body, correct. Request body. So what? Student object, right? Student. Okay. I will accept the student object from the front end, from the browser. Okay. I will be using this variable, student service variable dot add student of the service class. I will supply the student object. After doing this, I want to return what? I want to return the it is going to return a string, right? It is going to return the string. So let me return the same whatever it is written. Right? So simple now. Shall we test? Right? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Let us start. So let me stop this. So whenever you are making any changes, again you have to restart the server. Okay, let me restart the server. Okay, server is started. Okay, now I need to open what? I need to open this once again. Let me close this. HTTPS HTTP localhost h2 console. Okay, let me connect to the database. Student object is already there. I want to use the postman, right? Okay, what are the two variables that we have in the entity? We have three variables. You agree? We have how many variables in entity class? Three variables. But only we need to ignore this because Spring Data JPA will take care of generating the primary key, right? Generating the IDs. So you need to worry about name and the age. Yes or no? Right? We'll just supply name instead of here. We'll pass age. Let us say name is Ramesh. Let us say age is something like 25 because we are using the string type now, so I'm just putting in the double quotes. If I run this, okay, can you see this data of student data of Ramesh has been saved? Let us confirm this in the database. Okay, let me start writing the select query. Select start from student. Are you able to see the beauty? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Now see, I am answering your exercise questions with here. See, if post mapping is what? Non-idempotent, yes or no? Right?
Yes, sir.
If you keep hitting this request for 5 times, second time, third time, fourth time, fifth time, 5 times I have written. So 5 times the resource is created, yes or no? Right? See the side effect.
Yes, sir.
See the side effect. You will see 5 times. So can we control this? Question is, ID is unique, but what is not unique? Age and the age and the name is not unique, right? I mean everything is duplicated, right? But ID is unique.
Yes, sir.
If you ask someone, we have to say that everything is unique. Why everything is unique? Because of the primary key, everything becomes unique, right? If you consider primary key.
Yes, sir.
But there is a violation here. It is like same student is coming to the office and giving entry and giving the data and is being added. To avoid this not idempotent process, what you can do? You can do the conditional check. Okay, you can again check if the Ramesh is already exists in the database. You can do such conditions to avoid the side effects of the non-idempotency. Are you able to understand? You don't depend only on the primary
Yes,
key.
sir.
You depend on the name also. Sometimes you will consider 2 or more values to define a unique value, to make it more specific, to make it more unique value. Right? So now,
So write the logic for safety, sir.
yeah, you can write it. You can choose the name and you can say. Sometimes the names could be same. We cannot control that. Sometimes the name could be same. What you can control is you can have a composite key here. It's another key, or you can say you can do the comparison. For now, you can say Ramesh is already there. I cannot add you. And how you are going to add that logic? You have to check. You have to again connect to the database, and you have to see if Ramesh is not there, then only add, or else give an error message in the console saying that the name of the Ramesh is already added. You take this as a challenge, okay? You take this as a challenge. You start doing this today. You start trying to implement them,
Okay.
right? So this is the post method, and next one is what we will also test the get method. Okay, now get method is very easy. Start from the service. Okay, public string. Let me say a list of students. Get all students. Okay, so student repository, you use the student repository and you will try to find is there any method that is going to retrieve all the data. So you have a method called find all method. Is there no? Hello?
Yes, sir.
This query says internally this query will be converted, this method will be converted to a SQL query like select star from the so and so table. Just return this. Okay, now this is the service, and go to the controller. Okay, do the same thing. Okay, instead of string, you pass list of student. Okay, now you don't need to worry about this. Okay. Get of students. Okay, pass the student object. Okay, return dot get all students. Okay, define an endpoint on top of this method. Get mapping. Okay, get all. Looks good now. I need to restart it once again. Okay, I'm stopping the server, and I'm starting the server. Right, server is started. Let me open this S2 database once again. Connect. Once the database is opened, start hitting. Okay, let me say Ramesh 25. Let me add another student, Suresh. Let me add another student, Ganesh. Okay, let us go to the database. Let us do select star from student table. Ramesh, Suresh, and Ganesh. I did not change the age, so 25, 25, but see the generation, ID generation 1, 2, 3. It is generating sequentially, right? Now, if you want to get the all students, I will just change the request to get request, okay, and I will just change it to get all. Okay, now you will get a list of all students. Ganesh, Ramesh, Suresh, and Ganesh. Able to follow? Did you write any SQL query?
Yes.
Have you written any one SQL query? No, right?
No.
No, sir.
Who is taking care of this? Which tool is taking care of this? Hypernet, ORM. Okay, ORM is what is taking care of. Who is giving this ORM? The Spring Data JPA. What is JPA? JPA just rules and regulations, which is going to supply some methods. Those methods are equivalent to the SQL queries, the common SQL queries. Can you do this for update and the? Can you all do it for the update as well as the delete mapping? Hello? What you want me to do?
Who will do?
Update map, very simple. You can supply the same logic which we have discussed yesterday. Just you will choose these changes. Okay, delete for delete map, and also do this put mapping also.